The memory remains etched in my mind, sharp and jagged like a shard of glass that refuses to dull with time. I was 11 years old, standing in the cavernous foyer of a house that suddenly felt more like a mausoleum than a home. My fingers clenched white around a single crumpled $20 bill. It was the height of summer, the air outside thick with heat and the drone of cicadas, but inside, a chill had settled deep into my bones. My mother, Veronica, stood by the heavy oak door, her silhouette framed by the blinding afternoon light. She was hauling a massive leather-bound suitcase, the wheels rumbling against the hardwood floor like distant thunder. She turned to me, her face plastered with a bright, terrifyingly artificial smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "See, Ilara, you are independent now," she chirped, her voice light and airy, as if she were commenting on the weather rather than abandoning her child. "You aren't a baby anymore. You're my little adult. Just order whatever food you need. You'll be fine." "Okay," I whispered, the word barely escaping my throat. Independent. That was her word, a weapon she used to absolve herself of guilt. It wasn't mine. I looked down at the bill sweating in my palm. $20. That was the sum total of my safety net. Not a contingency plan, not a guardian, not even a babysitter to check if I was breathing. There wasn't even a genuine goodbye, just the ghostly brush of her lips against my forehead, a dry, performative kiss, and then the sound of the suitcase rolling down the driveway. The front door clicked shut, the lock sliding into place with a finality that echoed through the empty hallway. "I will be fine," I said aloud to the silence, hoping the vibrations of my own voice would fill the void. But the silence just swallowed the words. My hands were trembling violently. There was no one else in the sprawling suburban house. No one to cook a warm meal, no one to lock the windows at night, no one who even knew that I, a child of 11, had been left behind like a piece of forgotten furniture. I tried to armor myself with false bravado. I treated it like a game, a challenge I had to win to prove my worth. Day one, I told myself, I will prove that I can handle this. I marched into the kitchen, the linoleum cold against my bare feet, and surveyed the pantry. It was a landscape of neglect. A few dented cans of soup, a box of crackers, and a fridge that hummed with emptiness. I shoved the rising panic down, forcing it into the pit of my stomach. If my mother thought I was independent, then I would show her exactly what that independence looked like.
But I didn't know that as the month dragged on, the $20 would vanish, the meager food supply would rot or run out, and the silence of our home would curdle into something darker than simple loneliness. I didn't know that when they finally returned, what my mother would find waiting for her would make her whisper, in a voice trembling with horror, "No, no, this cannot be happening." If you want to know how being abandoned with $20 turned into the single decision that made my mother regret every selfish choice she ever made, listen closely. This is the autopsy of a family, and I held the scalpel. The first disaster struck exactly 10 minutes after the taxi faded from view. My mother had tossed a sleek silver emergency credit card onto the granite countertop before she left, acting as if that thin piece of plastic was a magic wand that would solve all my problems. There was, however, a critical flaw in her logic. As I stood there, phone in hand, attempting to order a pizza through a delivery app, the screen flashed red. Card declined. I tried again. Declined. And again. Declined. Panic, cold and sharp, pricked at my skin. The card wasn't activated. I didn't know the PIN. I was standing in a $500,000 house with a dead piece of plastic and a $20 bill that had to last me 30 days. Day one passed in a haze of denial. I turned survival into a ritual. I took a loaf of bread and sliced it so thin the pieces were almost translucent. I spread peanut butter with the precision of a surgeon, ensuring it barely coated the surface, telling myself that real survivors knew how to stretch their resources. I even laughed internally, thinking this would be a funny anecdote to tell my friends at school when summer ended. By day 3, the humor had evaporated, leaving only a dull, aching hunger. The pantry looked like the aftermath of a famine. There were cans of vegetables I didn't have the strength or the tools to open properly, resulting in jagged metal edges and sliced fingers. There was a box of sugary cereal that contained more air than sustenance, and a jar of pickles that had been sitting in the back of the fridge since Christmas. My stomach growled constantly, a loud, guttural sound that embarrassed me even in the solitude of the house. I tried to distract myself from the gnawing emptiness. I turned on the television, letting the volume swell until it vibrated the walls, just to drown out the creaking of the floorboards. I wandered into my mother's home office, staring at her laptop, at the stack of work emails she prioritized over her own daughter. At one point, driven by a sudden, fierce impulse, I grabbed a spiral-bound notebook from her desk. On the first blank page, I wrote one word in bold, jagged letters: evidence.
Underneath it, I scribbled the facts of my existence. Left alone at 11, $20 cash, no food plan, no check-ins. I didn't know what I intended to do with this record. I wasn't thinking about legalities or revenge, not yet. But writing it down shifted something tectonic inside me. If they thought I was old enough to be abandoned, then I was old enough to remember. I was old enough to be the witness to my own neglect. I picked up my smartphone and opened the video camera. Day 3, I whispered to the lens. On the screen, my face looked gaunt, smaller than I remembered. I am still alone. The card doesn't work. I ate the last piece of decent food yesterday. I paused, swallowing hard against a dry throat. If you are seeing this, it means someone finally asked what happened to me. I saved the clip and locked the phone, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Part of me hoped the video would stay buried forever. Another part, a darker, angrier part, wanted it to explode in my mother's face the second she walked through the door. I hovered over my best friend Maya's contact name. If I texted her, I would have to admit the truth, that I was discarded, hungry, and terrified. Pride is a funny thing. It keeps you standing even when you should be on your knees. Instead of crying for help, I sent a text that masked the horror. "How was your trip?" No reply. She was probably at a lake house, eating burgers with a family that actually wanted her. The jealousy twisted in my gut, sharper than the hunger. By day 5, the hunger wasn't just a sensation. It was a fog that clouded my brain. Standing up too quickly sent black spots dancing across my vision. I found a stale bag of cereal at the back of a cupboard and ate it dry, one flake at a time, trying to savor the chemically sweet dust. I opened the notebook again. Day 5, still no call from Mom, not even a text. Then I added a line that chilled me as I wrote it. If I disappear, this notebook will prove it wasn't my fault. That was the moment the dynamic changed. This wasn't about surviving until she returned. This was about what would happen to her when the world found out what she had done. On day 7, my body was weak, but my rage had calcified into something diamond hard. I shuffled to the front window, peering through the blinds at the sun-drenched street. The world outside was obscenely normal. Kids were riding bicycles and looping circles. A dog barked at a delivery truck. A couple walked hand in hand, sipping iced coffees. Normal lives, normal parents. I looked at our empty driveway, a slab of concrete that felt like an accusation. "You chose Europe over me," I whispered to the class. Do you have any idea what that's going to cost you? As if the universe had been waiting for my declaration, the doorbell rang. I froze. Cereal dust coated my fingertips. No one ever rang our doorbell, not really. Neighborhood kids knocked, delivery drivers dropped packages and ran. The bell chimed again, insistent, followed by 3 sharp, authoritative raps on the wood. My heart thudded in my ears, a frantic drumbeat. For a second, the instinct to hide overwhelmed me. If I pretended I wasn't home, whoever it was would leave. But a cutting thought sliced through the fear. What if this is it? What if this is the moment someone finally sees me? My hand shook as I reached for the brass handle. If you were 11, starving, and completely alone, would you open that door? Or would you keep up the charade that everything was fine? I cracked the door open, leaving the safety chain engaged, just enough to see a slice of the porch. Standing there with a man in a forest green windbreaker with my school's emblem embroidered on the chest. It took my fogged brain a moment to place him out of context. "Hi, Alara," he said, his voice gentle but laced with concern. It was Mr. Sterling, the school guidance counselor. "I've been trying to reach your parents regarding some end-of-year paperwork. They aren't picking up. Is everything all right? Can I come in for a moment?" My first instinct was to lie, to say they were in the shower or at the store, but my grip on the door loosened. I unhooked the chain. "Sure," I murmured, stepping back. "I guess." He stepped into the foyer, and the atmosphere of the house seemed to hit him immediately. The stillness was oppressive. He looked around, his eyes scanning the dust motes dancing in the light, the silence that hung heavy in the air. "Are your parents at work?" he asked, expecting a routine answer. "They're in Europe," I said. My voice surprised me. It was flat, devoid of emotion. "Europe?" His eyebrows shot up toward his hairline. "For how long? Who is staying with you?" I swallowed. This was the precipice. I could protect them, or I could burn it all down with the truth. My fingers curled into the fabric of my t-shirt. "Just me," I admitted. "They said I was old enough." The transformation in Mr. Sterling's face was instantaneous. The polite, bureaucratic concern vanished, replaced by a sharp, focused intensity. He pulled out a dining chair and sat, gesturing for me to do the same. "Alara, how long have you been alone?" "A week," I whispered. "Almost." "Do you have food? Money?" I let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "They left a credit card that doesn't work, and $20. He stared at me for a long, agonizing moment. It wasn't the way a teacher looks at a student who forgot their homework.
It was the look of an adult realizing a crime has been committed. "This is not okay," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "You know that, right?" I shrugged, though my chest ached with the validation. They said they needed a break, that I'm mature, that I should be able to handle it. "And how have you been handling it?" I wanted to say fine. I wanted to maintain the illusion, but the notebook lay on the table, the word evidence shouting from the page. "I've been hungry," I said, my voice trembling, "and scared. And I've been writing things down, just in case." "Just in case what?" "Just in case something happens to me," I replied, "so nobody can say they didn't know." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on, but then he leaned forward, meeting my eyes. "Ilara, leaving an 11-year-old alone for a week, let alone a month, without food or supervision, that isn't just irresponsible. It is dangerous. It is neglect. There are laws about this." Neglect? Laws? The words hung in the air, heavy and serious. They belonged in courtroom dramas, not in my kitchen. "What happens if someone finds out?" I asked, my voice small. "Agencies get involved," he said carefully, measuring his words. "Child Protective Services. There would be an investigation. Your parents could face serious consequences." Consequences. The words sparked something in my chest. My anger, which had been a dull coal, flared into a hot flame. "Consequences," I repeated slowly, "for what they did to me?" He didn't rush to comfort me with platitudes. He nodded. "For what they did to you." I imagined my mother coming home to find strangers in her immaculate living room. I imagined her trying to dazzle them with a fake smile, only to be met with the cold, hard facts of my hunger. "Do you want help, Ilara?" Mr. Sterling asked. "Real help, not just groceries, the kind of help that ensures this never happens again." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to slam the door on reality, to wait for them to return and pretend this month was just a bad dream. But the part of me that had written in that notebook was done pretending. "Yes," I said. "But if I say yes, what does that mean for them?" "It means they will have to answer for their choices," he said. "It means adults will finally see what you have been going through." I looked down at my hands, then back at him. "Then help me. I want them to see exactly what they did. I want them to feel what it's like to lose control." He nodded, a sharp, decisive movement. "First, we make sure you are safe. Then we make sure the right people hear your story." As he pulled out his phone to make the call, a strange, icy calm settled over me. I wasn't just a victim waiting to be rescued anymore. I was a witness for the prosecution. Mr. Sterling stepped into the hallway, his voice low and urgent. I caught fragments. Alone, 11, no guardian, absolute abandonment. And the words fueled my resolve. I traced the ink on my notebook page. It wasn't a diary anymore. It was a case file. Minutes later, he returned. "I've called your neighbor, Mrs. Higgins," he said, "and I've spoken to the Child Protection Hotline. They are dispatching a caseworker. But first, we need to get you something to eat." My cheeks burned with shame at the thought of being a charity case, but beneath the shame was a flicker of dark satisfaction. If they were checking on me, they were investigating my parents.
Is Mrs. Higgins mad? I asked. He shook his head. No, she's worried. That's what good neighbors do. A soft knock at the door signaled Mrs. Higgins' arrival. She was an older woman who usually smelled of lavender and laundry detergent. She stepped inside, her eyes sweeping over me, landing on the notebook, the empty cereal box, and finally my pale face. "Oh, Ilara," she breathed, her hand flying to her mouth. "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" "Because I didn't want to look weak," I blurted out, the truth spilling over. "They always tell me I'm mature. I thought asking for help meant I was failing." Her expression softened into something heartbreakingly kind. Asking for help isn't weakness, honey. It's survival. And sometimes it's the only way to make adults face the mess they've made. Make adults face the mess. That sentence struck me like a bell. We sat together, and for the first time, I wasn't a child being ignored. They asked me to recount everything. I told them about the suitcase, the dead credit card, the way my mother laughed when I asked about a babysitter. As I spoke, Mrs. Higgins' jaw clenched tight. Mr. Sterling took notes with a furious speed. "Can we show them this?" I asked, pushing the notebook forward. "When the hotline people come?" "Yes," Mr. Sterling said. "In fact, I want you to keep writing. Write down what you felt, what you ate, every time you tried to call them. Everything." "So they can't twist it later," I murmured. "So they can't say I'm making it up." "Exactly," he replied. "You are allowed to protect yourself with the truth." Protect myself with the truth. It sounded a lot like revenge, and I realized I didn't hate that idea. When the caseworker, a woman named Miss Lopez, arrived, she asked to inspect the house. I watched her gaze linger on the empty fridge, the trash can devoid of food wrappers, the useless credit card on the counter. She didn't need to say a word. Her face was a mask of professional horror.
"How long have they been gone?" she asked gently. 7 days, I answered. "They plan to be gone for a month." "And who checks on you?" "No one, until today." "Do they call?" "Not since the airport," I said. "She sent a selfie from Paris. That was it." Miss Lopez nodded slowly. As the adults conferred, I slipped away to the kitchen counter and set up my phone again. I recorded the scene, the empty fridge, the caseworker's briefcase, the concerned faces of my neighbors. "This is what our house looked like when they finally noticed I was alone," I narrated quietly. "This is what my mom will walk into when she comes back." I saved the video. I wasn't just surviving, I was documenting a crime scene. Miss Lopez returned to me. "For now, you won't be staying here alone," she said. "We are arranging for you to stay with Mrs. Higgins while we investigate and contact your parents." "Is that okay with you, Ilara?" Mrs. Higgins asked, squeezing my shoulder. I thought about the empty house, the creeping shadows at night, the silence. Then I thought about the shock on my parents' faces when they returned to find an official report instead of a compliant daughter. "Yes," I said. "I want to stay somewhere where I'm not invisible." That night, packing a bag felt like crossing a threshold. I looked around my room one last time. "This was the place you left," I whispered to the empty air, imagining my mother hearing it. "But it won't be the place you find when you come back." Moving next door should have been simple, but walking into Mrs. Higgins' house felt like entering a different universe. It smelled of vanilla and roasting chicken. The fridge was full, actually full, of fresh produce, not just condiments. "We'll fix your hunger first," Mrs. Higgins said, ignoring the rumble of my stomach to save my dignity. "Come on, let's cook." We made pasta from scratch. The smell of sautéing garlic and simmering tomatoes was overwhelming. "Keep the receipts," Mr. Sterling advised as we unpacked the groceries Mrs. Higgins had bought for me. "They show what wasn't in your house." So I pasted the receipts into the notebook, right after the pages detailing my starvation. Layer by layer, the evidence mounted. While the sauce bubbled, Miss Lopez asked for my mother's flight details and messages. I showed her the Eiffel Tower selfie. "Finally free for a month," the caption read. "Free from what?" Miss Lopez asked, her voice tight. "From you, I guess," I said. She wrote something down aggressively. "Do you want to write a statement for the report? Something your parents will see." My throat tightened, but I nodded. I sat at the table and wrote while the pasta cooked. "You said I was mature enough to be alone. But being mature doesn't mean I don't need food.
We heard the tires on. You told everyone how hard you work, but you didn't notice your own kid was counting crumbs. By the time you read this, strangers will have seen what you did. If there are consequences, they aren't because I betrayed you. They are because you left me. I slid the paper to Miss Lopez. Make sure they see this. I will, she promised. That dinner was the first warm meal I'd had in a week. It tasted like safety. But as I ate, I listened to the adults talking in low tones in the living room. Temporary custody, investigation, removal. My parents had treated my life like a convenience they could pause. Now, they were about to lose the right to hit play. Before sleep, I recorded one more video. Day 7. I'm not in my house anymore. I'm safe. People know. I looked directly into the lens. If you're watching this, Mom, remember what you always told me. Actions have consequences. This time, it's your turn. The days at Mrs. Higgins' house were a blur of comfort and anxiety, but the clock was ticking. My parents were coming back. On the second night, my phone buzzed. Mom, work. Aren't you going to answer? Mrs. Higgins asked. What if she yells at me? Then you'll know where you stand. Put it on speaker. I answered. Alara? My mother's voice was sharp, annoyed. What is going on? Why is there an email from Child Services? Why is your school calling me? Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? Not, are you okay? Not, I'm sorry. Just, how dare you? They are involved because you left me, I said, my voice shaking. You left me with $20 and a broken card. You are exaggerating, she snapped. There was plenty of food. You're being dramatic. I can't believe you would ruin our reputation like this. Mrs. Higgins leaned in. This is Mrs. Higgins, the neighbor. I'm the one who bought your daughter food because she was starving. This isn't about reputation. It's about safety. Silence on the line. Then a cold hiss. We will talk about this when we get back, and there will be consequences, young lady. The line went dead. She's right, Mrs. Higgins said softly. There will be consequences, but not for you. The next day, Miss Lopez came to my school. Your parents moved their flight up, she said. They'll be home in 3 days. We will meet them at the house. Do you want to be there? I considered hiding, but hiding felt like losing. I want to be there, I said. I want them to see me standing there. For 2 days we prepared. We printed call logs, screenshots, receipts. We built a paper trail that was undeniable. On the morning of their return, the house felt like a courtroom. We sat at the kitchen table. The notebook lay open. My phone was propped up, the video of my gaunt face on pause. Are you sure? Miss Lopez asked. Yes, it's my proof. The gravel, the slamming of car doors, muffled laughter. My mother walked in first, dragging her suitcase, looking tan and expensive. My father followed, looking at his phone. They stopped dead when they saw the tribunal in their kitchen. What is this? My mother demanded, dropping her bag. What are you all doing in my house? Mr. and Mrs. Carter, Miss Lopez stood up. I am from Child Protective Services. We need to discuss the neglect of your daughter. Neglect? My mother laughed, a brittle sound. She's 11. She's mature. We left her everything she needed. You left her a dead card and expired food, Miss Lopez said, sliding the photos across the table. You didn't call her for 7 days. We trusted her, my father argued, looking pale. You trusted me to survive, I said, my voice cutting through the noise. You didn't trust yourselves to be parents. She's lying, my mother spat, eyes wild. She's doing this for attention. Show them, Miss Lopez nodded at me. I pressed play on the phone. My voice filled the room. Day 3. I'm still alone. I ate the last decent thing yesterday. The camera panned to the empty shelves. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. She stepped back as if struck. She couldn't argue with the video. She couldn't gaslight a recording. No, she whispered. This isn't happening. It is, Miss Lopez said firmly. Effective immediately, Alara is being placed in temporary protective custody. You will not have unsupervised access until a court hearing. You can't take my child, my mother screamed, tears finally flowing. We just needed a break. We work so hard. Actions have consequences, I said, repeating her mantra. You taught me that. This is your consequence. She looked at me, her face crumbling. Alara, please, tell them we can fix this. I want to be safe, I said. Right now, that's not with you. We walked out of the house, leaving them standing in the wreckage of their own making. I didn't feel guilty. I felt light. Weeks later at the hearing, the judge ordered mandatory counseling and supervised visits. They didn't go to jail, but they lost something more important, their authority. They lost the narrative. My mother still sends long apologetic texts. She claims she's changed. Maybe she has, but I know the truth. The day she walked into that kitchen, she didn't just find a messy house. She found a daughter who had turned her pain into evidence. I learned that help isn't weakness. I learned that truth is the most powerful weapon you can hold.
So ask yourself, if you were 11, alone, and hungry, would you protect the parents who left you behind? Or would you do what I did and let the truth be the revenge they never saw coming? If this story chilled you to the bone, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You do not want to miss the next story from the archives. Like and share if you believe truth is the ultimate payback.